if you just think, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I should be saying this, but if you think that you are just going to hook some young guy at the bar and marry him within a month and he's just gonna take care of you for the rest of his life and you're gonna just do nothing and have a wonderful lifestyle with lots of nice things, you're wrong. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Caitlin and today's video is going to be an interesting one. It is going to be sort of an advice video. First I was trying to come up with a title for it. I was like, tips and tricks on how to be married to someone in the military, but that just doesn't really sound right because it's a pretty big decision and it's not really like a tips and tricks sort of thing. So it's kind of an advice on what it's actually like to be married to someone who is in the military, because I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions about it. So just to give a little bit of background on why I feel like I'm qualified to talk on this subject. So I personally am married to a Marine. We have been married for a little over a year at this point. But I do have more experience than just that, because I feel like being married to someone in the military, you can't be married to them for just 1 year and be like, oh, I know everything. To give more context, my dad used to be in the military. He is now retired. So I sort of watched my mom go through that. And my brothers are both in the military. And like I said, my husband's in the military. And interesting story, video for another time. I actually myself trained to be in the military. I was dropped out of training for medical reasons, but like I said, that's going to be a completely different video for a different time, because that is one heck of a story. And also, sorry, the lighting's going to be going in and out a little bit here because I'm filming with natural light, so sorry about that in advance. So just a few disclaimers I'm going to make. Number one, I might accidentally refer to being like your military spouse being a male. Maybe, I know that's not the case for everyone. There are some men who are civilians who are married to women who are in the military. It's not as common, but this video is probably just as applicable for you if you happen to be married to a woman in the military and you are a male civilian. Same-sex couples too, I guess. And then also, all of the military members that I'm close with are in the Marine Corps, and so if I say Marine a lot, again, this is applicable for like Army, Navy, Coast Guard, Air Force. And also a pretty big one here is I'm mostly going to be referring to the lifestyle of what it's like to be a spouse of someone who is an active duty military member. Some of these things can still apply to reservists. My husband was a reservist at one point in time, so I did kind of see what that was like as well. While we were dating, he was a reservist. But again, this is mostly going to be applicable to active duty spouses. These little dots are going to annoy me so much. So I have my notes here on my phone because this is a lot of information. I'm going to try to condense it down as much as possible. But my first sort of bit of advice is to make sure that you have an identity outside of what your spouse does for a living. And I know that sounds kind of strange, like what kind of crazy person is like, oh, my husband's a banker, or my husband's a chef, or like whatever the case may be. I cannot tell you how many times that I have met fellow military spouses and, you know, you ask them like, oh, like what do you do? Like, tell me about yourself. And they're like, my husband's a gunnery sergeant. And you're like, I didn't ask, you know, like that's not what I asked. Like I can't even, like I said, I can't even tell you how many times that's happened. And it's just so frustrating because, like I said before, no one identifies themselves as their spouse's profession really anywhere else that I've ever seen. So what my point is make sure that you have something for yourself that you are doing. Maybe you're not working. Trust me, I understand it can be difficult to find work when you're constantly moving around, and maybe you know, people don't want to hire because, you know, you're only going to be there for 6 months, or maybe you're raising kids, which is definitely a full-time job, especially if you have multiple. I do not have kids yet, also, for the record. But for example, I myself, I have a job. I also work for the Marine Corps as a civilian, which is honestly pretty convenient because it's something that I'll be able to transfer from base to base, and that's something that I think I also want to make another video on at some point, is how to have some sort of career while still being married to someone in the military, but that's going to be a different video. But even if you don't have a job for any of the reasons that I just listed, have something, some kind of hobby or something it is that you do that is strong enough that like can identify yourself when people ask about you. Because, you know, I'm just starting this YouTube thing, so, you know, maybe a few months down the line, because my husband and I are moving in a few months to California, if I'm not employed right away, if someone asks what I do, I'm not just gonna be like, well, my husband's in the Marine Corps. I'm gonna say, oh, you know, I'm really into photography, and I have been filming YouTube videos. You know, have something, because you can't just like, yes, even though your spouse's career while they are active duty will determine where you live and you know, what their job is and how long you're gonna live where you're living and all kinds of different things, you know, maybe where your kids grow up. You need to have something else that is within your control. So yes, your career does take the back seat, but that doesn't mean that your whole identity should be taking the back seat as well. You need to have something for yourself, if that makes sense. Okay, next piece of advice, and this one seems kind of weird because I'm talking about advice on what it's like to be a military spouse, but this next piece of advice is have a backup plan. Not just you, but also especially your spouse, because the military is not forever. It can be, it absolutely can be. You know, there are people that do like 20-year careers, but that's actually really not that common. I think I looked it up the other day. Let me look it up again. The average length of service for enlisted personnel is about 6 years. That could be for a variety of reasons. I've heard a lot of different reasons as to why people's military careers end. Some of them gruesome, like injuries. Others just maybe their MOS, their job gets phased out and is obsolete. Like I know, for example, the Marine Corps is phasing out the tanker MOS because we don't really fight with tanks anymore. But there's a lot of reasons why military careers might not last as long as you think they will. So yes, even though the Marine Corps, or excuse me, being associated with the military might feel like it is forever, you and your spouse need to have a backup plan. You know, what are you gonna do if for some reason, you know, your spouse finds out that their re-enlistment package was not accepted and they only have a year left? It's because yes, the military does provide a lot of financial security, but that's, like I said, it's not forever. So I know my husband and I have a backup plan, but it's just something that you do need to think about. Maybe the backup plan is law enforcement or furthering your education, like going back to school, moving back home, whatever the case may be. You need to have some other plan for when the military is over, because it will not last forever. Okay, so this next tip is definitely one that is maybe slightly controversial, if anything. It's definitely got a lot of memes associated with it, and it has to do with sort of, there are a lot of perks in the military, and there are a lot of memes about dependas who take advantage of these military perks. So if you're not familiar with what a dependa is, it is a derogatory slang term for a dependent, because if you are married to someone in the military, or if you are a child of someone in the military, you are considered a dependent of them. I was once a dependent on my father when he was in the Marine Corps. Now I'm a dependent of my husband. And I guess what I'm trying to get to here is, my point is that yes, there are a lot of perks associated with being a dependent, but they are not as good as you think they might be. So if you just think, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I should be saying this, but if you think that you are just going to hook some young guy at the bar and marry him within a month, and he's just gonna take care of you for the rest of his life, and you're gonna just do nothing and have a wonderful lifestyle with lots of nice things, you're wrong. Yes, there are definitely a lot of perks, like I said, and to be clear, those include healthcare, first and foremost. That's a really big one. Whenever I go to get a doctor's appointment or an eye exam or dentist, I even went to the emergency room a few months ago. All of that was free for me. Prescriptions are free as well. That is just something that that's one of the benefits of being married to a member of the military. Obviously it is free for them as well. And when we eventually have children, which we're not planning for to have children for a little while, they will also be covered. Another perk is we are given a housing allowance. So right now we do not live on base, we live in an apartment off base. And we are paid a little bit more than the cost of rent to live in this place. So we're actually making like maybe $100, $200 a month in rent, because the Marine Corps, if you are married or if you have children, like I said, they pay you for housing. Another perk is that on military exchanges, or excuse me, on military installations, there are things called exchanges and commissaries, which I actually work for the Marine Corps exchange. I'm not going to really get into that. The exchanges and the commissaries, they're a lot less expensive to shop at than places outside of the gate, like off of the installations. I know like my groceries that my husband and I buy are like, our grocery bill is a lot less expensive because we shop on base. And if we ever need any like basic household items and we go to the commissary, that's a lot less expensive. Another sort of interesting set of perks is like, there's like movie theaters on base. We've never actually been to them. But they're less expensive than regular movie theaters off of base. There's also like, you can get random like tickets to different parks. My husband is going to the gym. I can see him outside my window. You can go to like, there's like, you know, you can get tickets to like different like theme parks nearby for less expensive, or you can, you know, show your military ID at certain stores and they'll give you a discount. Like there are little perks like that. But to sort of put it into perspective, when my husband and I first moved here, I had just gotten dropped from really extremely unexpectedly. Like we really didn't see this coming. Again, video for another time. I just gotten dropped from military training. So I moved in here. I moved into his apartment when he was starting schooling. He had already commissioned, and I did not have a job because I did not expect to be dropped when I wasn't able to find a job right away. And we were just living off of my husband's salary, which included the housing allowance. But like I said, the housing allowance just covers the rent that we currently have. And we had, I'll say, a comfortable lifestyle. We were definitely able to pay for, we have one vehicle between us still, so we paid for the lease for that. Like I said, the rent, groceries, bills, including like Wi-Fi, my phone, stuff like that. And here and there we were able to like go out to dinner. Oh, the lighting's changing again, cool. Here and there we were like able to go out to dinner. He was able to put away money towards retirement. I could have as well. I wasn't at the time, but that was about it. There was no extra room in there really. We were also saving for a second car at the time, but there was no extra room in there for us to be like, for me to be like, oh, I'm just not gonna work and now we're just gonna be able to buy another car, no problem, and I'm gonna buy myself all this fancy clothing and all this makeup. Like that's just that we didn't have the money for that. Eventually I did get a job. I got a job as a sales associate. Definitely not what I was hoping for as a recent college grad, but then I was able to get a better job. But long story short, the perks of being married to someone in the military will give you, if you choose not to work, will give you a comfortable lifestyle. So again, do not think I am going to marry someone in the military and I'm just going to be set for life. I'm going to do nothing and I'm going to be able to have this, I'm going to be traveling and I'm going to be buying nice things, because that is just not going to happen. Sorry. Okay, this one is kind of interesting. I feel like I've had a different experience with this tip than most people, because like most military spouses, because like I said, my dad was a Marine, my brothers are Marines, my husband's a Marine, I work for the Marine Corps, I myself trained to be an officer in the Marine Corps twice. I grew up just outside of a Marine Corps base. in Hawaii. My situation is a little bit unusual because I don't think that many people that become military spouses are that like deeply entrenched in the military. But my tip is to have a basic understanding of the branch that your spouse is in and what it is that they do for a job. And I say that for a few reasons. One, it's just kind of like common decency, like regardless of what your spouse does, it's nice to know what they do so that when they come home, they've had a stressful day, they can just rant and tell you what's going on. You want to be able to talk to your spouse about what it is that they do because it is a stressful job. I feel like regardless of what branch you're in or what job you do, I mean, some are more stressful than others, but there's stress no matter what, whether it's, you know, maybe they don't like their unit, maybe they don't like their job is difficult, their chain of command sucks, or they just don't get along with them, they don't get along with their peers, they have to work unusual hours, there's stress involved. And so you need to have a basic understanding of what it is that they're going through. We'll get to a little bit later, but communication is extremely important in a military marriage, and it just leads to sort of a breakdown of communication. And it's just like the considerate thing to do. When you are married to someone in the military, odds are you are going to hang out with a lot of other people in the military. And guess what happens when you put multiple people from the military into a room together? They only talk about the military. And so you don't want to like be that person, you know, your spouse is home and they're hosting all of their buddies from work or whatever, and they are just going on and on about what it is that they do, and then you're just sitting there for 4 hours like, oh, your staff corporal was upset? Like, no, you want to know what it is that they're talking about. It's also for your own sake, because like even with like the pretty good knowledge of the Marine Corps that I have based on my experience as a civilian, again, I've never been a Marine myself, there are still times when my husband's chatting away with his friends and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I don't know what's going on, and it's just genuinely not enjoyable. I'm not saying you need to be an expert on, you know, all of the different ranks and all of the different billets and all of the different uniform things and all of the weapons. Like, you don't need to be an expert on all of that, but please just have a basic understanding of what it is that they do. It helps your marriage and it'll help you in social situations. So my next point kind of ties into having knowledge of basic military things relating to the branch or the job that your spouse is in, and that is know how to conduct yourself in a military setting. And I, like I said, do not live on base. I live off base. I've never lived on a Marine Corps base or a military base ever. But odds are that you live near one or on one if you are married to an active duty military member. For example, a basic one, what you can wear and not wear when on a military base. Right now, you can't really tell because you can only see from here up on me, but I am wearing a, crop top. I would not walk around a Marine Corps base in a crop top. Marine Corps bases actually have, and I'm only gonna say Marine Corps bases. I have been on some other bases that I have seen dress codes on. I couldn't tell you what they are off the top of your head, but like at least at a minimum, think of like a high school dress code. I know for a fact that like Marine Corps installations, you can't go into any places of retail with your boobs out or your belly button out or your shoulders out. You can't have underwear showing. Everything needs to be covered. You know, a lot of places have also like a closed-toed shoe policy, and it does depend on installation to installation. I know when I was in Hawaii at the time, the base commander was really strict. You just need to be presenting yourself in a way that does not reflect poorly on your, like, the military installation, the branch, and your spouse. And the way that I remember it was told to me one time was act as if the commandant of the Marine Corps, or not even him, like the base commander, was about to walk into whatever store you're in, and you're standing there in your booty shorts. Like, you know, you need to be dressed appropriately. There are other rules. Again, I guess this depends on installation to installation, but for example, you cannot be, they will not service you in any retail locations on a Marine Corps base if you walk in athletic gear. So even if you're, you know, wearing a button-down shirt but you have workout leggings on, they won't let you in. This actually happened to my husband one time. I think he totally forgot, and he walked into a Marine Mart and they were like, sorry sir, we can't serve you. Oh, another one, like this is I don't want to say this is a minor one, because it's done for an important reason, but like on Marine Corps bases, there is sounding of the colors twice a day. It depends on the installation, what time exactly it is, but you know, you don't want to be walking around during colors and then colors is going off. And if you're not familiar with colors, you can look it up online to like hear the sound, but it's like respecting the raising and the lowering of the flag. So what you're supposed to do during colors is stop what you're doing. If you are a service member in uniform, you stand in the position of attention and you face the nearest flag. If you are a civilian, I've seen some people put their hand on their heart. I've never done that. I've always just like held my little hands in front of myself. But you don't want to be that guy that's like walking around like, here I am on my way, like making my way downtown, and like the, you know, the colors are playing. So that's just like a smaller example, but make sure you know how to conduct yourself in military settings. The military is a small world. I hate that I have to address this, but I've heard stories from my parents, not so much my brothers. I mean, you can see it in movies. Like look up what is it, Jarhead? Oof, that was really hard to watch. But I've heard stories of people, you know, finding out that other people were cheating just because, oh, you know, isn't that Sergeant so-and-so's car and Lance Corporal so-and-so's house? Like, you know, isn't he deployed? What is Sergeant so-and-so doing there? You know, like, I've totally just made that up, but be careful with what you do. Don't do stupid things that you think you might regret, because word gets around quick. I will say that. And finally, bringing us to the last point. I feel like I'm gonna have to cut down this video a lot because I am a talker, and this is something that's kind of pretty near and dear to my heart. And that is to be flexible. And I am not going to lie and say that this is easy. I am not a very flexible person. I hate when plans change. I hate it so much. There will be times when you will not see your spouse for a while, and yes, that does mean deployments, but that also means, like, you know, my husband is in the middle of a bunch of training. He's got back from 2 weeks in the field in 29 Palms in California, and I didn't, like I said, didn't see him for 2 weeks, and I also didn't have phone contact with him, and like, yeah, that was tough, but like that's nothing compared to a deployment. I haven't been through a deployment yet, obviously. But you just have to understand that if you're the kind of person that needs to have your spouse like with you all the time, it's not gonna work. Like, you have to understand, like, the needs of the unit that your spouse is in is so much greater than the needs of your family. And I know that sucks to hear, but if you're like, oh my gosh, like, you know, why are you always home so late, or what do you mean you have to go back to the field, you were just in the field, like, odds are they don't know either. Or, you know, even if they do, it's not like it's something that they could change. It's because someone way higher than them knows that the unit needs to get this qualification, or they need to practice this thing, even if they're in garrison. Or like, that means like they're not in the field or they're not deployed, like their schedules can be nuts, like they have PT in the morning, really early in the morning, or a lot of the times, you know, they'll be doing their jobs throughout the day and something goes wrong, like they have to search for night vision goggles that got lost in the woods, or you know, there's some other big inspection or something coming up, and it's not, a lot of times in the military, it's not, you know, work, it's not like a civilian job where it's like, oh, I work a 9 to 5. It's like I work a 5 to when the job's done. This is another thing that I've had to work on myself. It is not your spouse's fault that their schedule is like this. So there have been so many times when, you know, my husband's told me like, oh, I'm not gonna see you for 3 days. And then like 6 hours later, he's like, hey, can you pick me up right now? And I'm like, what? I already made plans, guy. Like, I already got stuff going on. Like, I'm booked and busy. You told me I wasn't gonna see you for 3 days, and it's not their fault. Plans change. Weather can change the plans. You know, I'm not thinking of other examples right now, but you need to tell yourself, and I've had to do this myself, you know, take a breath and just realize it's not your spouse's fault that their plans, their schedules are changing. It's not their fault. So you need to be flexible, and you need to understand that you cannot blame your spouse for the things that are changing. It's not their fault that they've been told they need to go somewhere else. It is not their fault that they've been told they need to leave for a certain amount of time. There's a much bigger picture going on. Trust me, okay? Trust me, I've had to work on it myself as well. You need to communicate. You need to communicate. And I do mean that in the sense of like communicate your emotions, like, hey, I know that you just got back from the field, and tonight your buddies want to go out and you want to go drink with your buddies, but I haven't seen you in a few weeks and you just spent all week in the field with them. Can you please hang out with me tonight instead? And you know, if they say no, that's a different issue, but don't just sit there being unhappy and like, oh, I just wish you'd spend time with me. Cause like, you know, you need to talk about your feelings, and that sounds so mushy-gushy, but it's a stressful job and there's a lot of emotions flying around, you know, both for them and for you. And another thing you need to be communicating on is plans. And even though I just said plans change, it doesn't mean that you should not still be communicating on them. My husband and I are always texting all the time, like, hey, I have a brief at 4. Well, this is mostly because we share one car right now. We're about to get another one this weekend. But like, hey, I have a safety brief at 4. Should be done at 5. Might be done at 7. We'll let you know. Like, we always have stuff going on like that. Just, you need to be communicating with your spouse. Otherwise, it's gonna make your job. It's gonna make his job, their job, and your quality of life very hard and difficult, because you know, everything's gonna be crazy. You're not gonna know, like, are they coming home now? Are they coming home in 6 days? Are they coming home? Are they already home right now? Like, you need to communicate. So to sum it all up as best I can, I have a very cliche thing I'm gonna say, and it's that being married to someone in the military is very high risk, high reward. And you know, the highs are really high, the lows are really low. Like, it's one hell of a ride, and so far I wouldn't have it any other way. You are okay with a more chaotic lifestyle, which has taken some patience and flexibility for me to say that, then this could be for you. It is so wonderful to, you know, I'm so proud to be able to say that my husband is a United States Marine, and I get to reap the benefits of, you know, free healthcare, and I get to live in a 2-bedroom apartment, which is, I feel like, pretty uncommon for someone who's been out of college for 1 year to say that. But at the same time, there's a lot of, you know, stressful times. There are arguments. There are times when you realize that, you know, a lot of the things in your life are not in your control, you know. But it's, if you feel like you're up for the task, that sounds really weird. But I would definitely say, if you're considering getting married to someone in the military and you follow the advice and think about the things that I've just talked about, and you think this is something that you could do, then go for it. Absolutely go for it. It's just been so wonderful so far. I'm really excited to see where his career takes him and what I will be doing as I tag along. So if you liked this video, please go ahead and subscribe below. I upload a new video every Sunday. And also go ahead and like this video if you liked it. If you have any questions about being married to someone in the military, feel free to comment down below as well. You can also find me at my Instagram, which is at Mahina. I'll put it somewhere on the screen. I'm still kind of new to this YouTube thing, so I'm like, put it on the screen. And I'm really responsive to my DMs there on Instagram. That sounds inappropriate, but if you have any questions, feel free to DM me there, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.